Well, we've heard a lot about apps, and app is sort of a very soft definition. It can mean any number of things, but basically it is associated with the mobile web and the mobile internet, particularly on smartphones. It extends HTML, and actually it's been developed over the last 15 years, so you can tell that this is going to be somewhat of an overview of all of the turmoil that's been going on. But it adds different features. It adds things like WebSockets. It adds features like multimedia, so you can play audio and video in it. So I'm interested in these things as mobile development infrastructures, and then also the discourse that surrounds them. So by discourse, I mean claims that are made by the companies or propagated through the media that are taken up by developers that are kind of ideologies about how these technologies work. So one example is Steve Jobs. He wrote an interesting letter, a note about Flash in 2010, where he described it as a closed platform in comparison to Apple, which is a more open platform. Now we can look back at this and think it's somewhat ironic, but you can see that what people say doesn't always match up with what they do. So why is this important to begin with? Well, one kind of vision we can look at is that it's HTML5 as the savior. It's going to save a lot of the big players from being boiled in this cauldron of smart devices in the cloud. It's a unifying figure. Another vision is that it actually is going to be disruptive. So it's going to disrupt business as usual for Apple and for Google, who are two of the main players there. And a lot of this is around the idea of appification. And this is just a word that I've picked up on kind of in developer circles, in industry conferences, and in the press. I'm actually going to tweet in a second. I'm trying to auto-tweet my own presentation, which is somewhat challenging. But there will be a series of tweets, kind of supplemental material going out, and one of them is kind of where this term comes from. It's an interesting time because you have several different types of apps. You have hybrid applications that actually use, are kind of HTML5 wrapped in a native wrapper. You have native applications, which are developed specifically for different platforms, and I'm sure a lot of you have encountered kind of challenges doing cross-platform delivery. And then you also have what are called web applications, which are basically web-based applications made in HTML5 and work in very many of the same ways. So the for-profits are kind of interested in this for a number of reasons. It's a solution for delivering ads and also responsive and adaptive web design. So you have this challenge of trying to deploy to multiple screens. But it's also kind of a hot keyword. So you'll see here, this is a post-web paradigm jar of pesto. So you hear the word app just about everywhere. But it also, so why are people interested in this? Why is it of interest? Well, I think about 25% and 50%, and these are the statistics of American adults who own tablets and smartphones, respectively. Of course, a lot of you are operating in different areas, so you probably have vastly differing statistics, but smartphones are being adopted worldwide at differing rates. But kind of behind the rhetoric is this move towards more tightly integrated platforms. And by tightly integrated, I mean close integration between the type of technology that's used, the development environment, the portal, how it's delivered, it can be centralized or decentralized, and then the devices themselves. So if you haven't noticed, if you own an iPhone or an iPad, you don't really have access to a file system on that, per se. So that's kind of a tightly locked down environment. So it's not really a question of open versus closed, but it's much more complex. It really depends on what kind of stakeholders you hope to engage through your product life cycle, what kind of requirements you're operating under already. For instance, if you're operating with people in a hackathon that are already accustomed to a certain technology, you're in a country where people already have certain devices out there. So 3 ending points. I kind of positioned HTML5 as the savior. But it's also kind of interest to industry. So we're at this interesting moment where HTML is kind of at play in both kind of industry and nonprofit spaces. We desperately need more open tools for HTML5 to succeed. Right now, they kind of don't exist. If you know of them, please come and see me, tweet at me. I would love to hear more about them and what you're doing. And we really need more research on, for instance, the business interests in HTML5. For instance, the World Wide Web Consortium, or the W3C, I haven't seen like a single study on what happens inside that space. I know about what happens inside there, but I don't know what really happens inside there. And that just about does it for me, so thank you so much.